This is Kelli Johnson and
Sam Christopher,
writers of episode 719, the Kazanjian Brothers.
You're listening to the Blacklist Exposed on Golden Spiral Media.
All good things must come to an end, and we are at the end of our watch party rewatch for Season 7 of The Blacklist. Good day, everybody. I am Agent Troy Heinrichs with you here on the award-winning The Blacklist Exposed podcast. And this is our final watch party because we are 1 week away from the return of The Blacklist and Season 8 on NBC, November 13th, 8 Eastern, 7 Central, here in the States. But first, tonight, we get to go back and revisit probably one of the craziest attempts to make a television episode happen, because The Blacklist filmed some of this in real life. They had to go and actually animate some of the sequences, and they did all the animation with only 5 weeks of time to be able to put it together. And what they came out with was something pretty darn amazing. But to make that happen, they really needed a good team of editors that was able to pull that off for them. So we want to welcome to the show tonight our good friends Chris Brookshire and Elyse Holloway from the editing bay, as they're going to tell us as the show goes along through this watch party how this was all put together. So they're going to be here on the watch party. Plus, you're going to hear from creator, executive producer Jon Bokenkamp on his thoughts on the finale and how they were able to pull off this crazy-ass stunt of making an animated version of The Blacklist for the Season 7 finale. We won't keep you in more suspense. Let's go ahead and get right to the watch party. We've been doing these a few weeks. Remember, when you hear this sound, that means you want to stop the podcast and go watch the episode. And then when you get to that natural commercial break, cut to black, go ahead and pause your Netflix, your DVD, your Blu-ray, your iTunes purchase, whatever it is you did. And then once you have that paused, come on back to the podcast and hear from Chris and Elyse about what they were actually able to do to put this thing together. The shots, the angles, the crossfades between the animation and the reality. Just such cool stuff in this particular episode. So here we go with number 719, the Kazanjian Brothers, with Jon Bokenkamp, Chris Brookshire, Elyse Holloway. Aaron Peterson shows up as well as myself. So enjoy, sit back, relax, and we'll see you on the other side. Hey, everybody. It is Finale Friday here at The Blacklist. We are The Blacklist Exposed. I'm Troy Heinrichs, and with me, as always, my fellow compatriot, Mr. Aaron Peterson, sitting there in the other chair. We got the awesome Blacklist shirts on. We got drinks going. TV's on, ready to go. And we're just going to have an exciting time tonight because we are getting animated, people. This is the episode we have all been waiting for. And tonight, we are talking with the people that actually made it happen. First and foremost, one of the men who came up with the idea to even do this in the first place, because we swear he is crazy, but it's awesome. Mr. Creator himself, Jon Bokenkamp, is here. Hey, John, how's it going?
Good. Crazy beard helps sell the craziness, so I'm good.
You're just going to say, is that the growth from we started the animation versus when we ended the animation?
Yeah, it started when the animation started, yes.
The two people that really should be the stars of the show, been with the Blacklist since season 3, one of the editors that put this all together, Mr. Chris Brookshire. How are you doing, Chris?
Oh, Chris has been there from the beginning, right?
Yeah, day one. Chris is day one, right?
Elyse is from
Good.
season
How are
3.
you guys?
Doing well. And then
I am an OG in the best sense of the word.
An OG. And then his partner in crime, of course, working on this episode, we have Elyse Holloway joining us. Hey, Elyse, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Doing well. Where should we start, John? I mean, how does this even happen? I guess let's start there.
Well, I have a place to start. Are your shirts designed by Anthony Pepe?
They might be.
Yeah, they might be. And I'm missing season 7, Pepe. I'm just
Pepe,
letting you know.
We're waiting for the season 7 mail, but so we can wear them tonight.
Oh, okay. Anthony Pepe is our makeup guy, special, all kinds of crazy blood stuff, and he does these T-shirts every year. So I got to call him and see if I can get one. Where did it start? The idea for this started with us only having shot 4 days. Chris and Elyse, isn't that right? It was 4 days of footage that we had for episode 19. and we thought we weren't going to be able to finish it. We flipped 2 episodes. So the episode with Wrestler and his brother was originally scheduled to be episode 18. And we thought for a while that may be the season finale, which is a little bit of a weird season finale. So we flipped episodes. And then through a series of conversations, just sort of batting around different ideas of how are we going to finish it, or could we finish it, we landed on this, this idea of animation, because we have comic books in the sort of canon of the show. Nicole Phillips, who is a former writer from the show, who was awesome in a series of comics, and we thought, well, maybe it might be different if we were a different show, if we were a lawyer show or a medical show, but the Blacklist is sort of a comic book in a way. it's a graphic novel. It's a bigger than life bad guy who's an anti-hero at the center of the show, and a rogues gallery of case of the week bad guys. And it felt like, well, it probably wouldn't be that weird if it were animated, so why not? So that's how we sort of landed on the idea about 6 weeks ago, I bet.
And that I don't know who's going to talk here, Troy. I mean, and how do you get everybody on board when they're all in different places? They're all in different locations. That's where a lot of people are like, how did this thing even come together? Because everyone has scattered because New York is shut down. And that's where a lot of these people are. And LA shut down. So, I mean, nobody's in the offices anymore. How do you get everyone on the same page to where, hey, guys, this is what we're going to do. And they're all not saying, the Johns, you guys are crazy. What are you trying to do to us?
Well, Chris and Elyse, you guys should speak to that, because you guys know far more about how the quarterbacking of information was moved around. What's your insight into the mess?
With the boss on the line.
Well,
we kind of heard rumblings about the animation happening, because at first we weren't sure if the episode was going to see the light of day or not. So once we heard that we were going to do animation, both Chris and I were super pumped and excited to have to work on something else, something a little different. And we started then planning to make sure Chris got a system in his house and how we were going to do the workflow and make sure everyone had the media. And then lots and lots of Zoom meetings to keep in touch with all the departments and keep on top of all the moving pieces.
One of the things, like Elyse said, one of the things that was crazy about it was everyone working from home. So Elyse having a system at home, Chris having a system at home, the animators working from home in London and Atlanta, are actors in Massachusetts and New York and California, wherever they were sort of hiding out, that everyone was in different places, and it really didn't matter. I think it gave us sort of a focus to pull together. And very early on, we started having conversations with the animators about what would this look like, how would the show look and feel, and it was sort of a 24-hour a day process, because Elyse would be sent footage, and Chris, they would be sent footage from the animators who had created 4 shots, 6 shots. They would then assemble that into, a scene. And, while London was working, we were sleeping, and Atlanta was working, we're giving notes. And so it was a real nonstop process that I think is faster than the animators. Again, Proof, who animated the show, they do previs on like Wonder Woman and the Avengers, and they spend months, if not years, on a sequence. And we needed 20 minutes of animation in 5 weeks. So it was an accelerated process for everyone.
Hey, and Elyse, I want to ask you, I mean, when you're first trying to understand, like, how do you determine, how do you blend live action with animation? Because that seems like a very complicated process to make look smooth, which it does in the episode that they're about to see.
Yeah, honestly, I got to give a lot of credit to the Johns for that one, because we were kind of spitballing some ideas around to try and get that transition decided. And I think it was JB, I think it was you, right, who mentioned kind of getting the idea from the opening title. And it just kind of worked. with the comic book feel and the edginess of the show, it just kind of fit together.
One of the things that we had was that we knew we wouldn't have, like, every time we did a transition, if the A side of the shot was live action and we go to the B side of the shot, but if we had a live action shot and we were transitioning into an animated shot, however long that transition would have to be animated. And that's another, even if it's 2 seconds of animation, that takes time. So on a couple of those transitions, whether it's a stock shot moving over DC, or there's one to Dembe, I think of specifically, they just gave us a frame and they're like, here's the still picture. And the visual effects company was able to sort of glitch that together using the sort of inspired by the title sequence where, all these sort of elements kind of glitch together and create a new, unified look. And so that became to me, it's Max Headroom. Everyone
I love Max Headroom.
Probably too old too young to remember that, but to me, it's like Max Headroom sort of freezing and glitching and using that as a transition.
Well, what is something we should look forward to tonight as we tease the episode here with 2 minutes to go before showtime? Like, what is the main theme that we should be thinking about as you guys put this together, either Chris or Elyse? What did you guys think is the theme as you were putting it together?
The theme of the episode is basically Liz is sort of trying to enact a new plan. She's come up with sort of a new mission, and she is aligned with her mother. And Dom is potentially going to wake up and allow her to sort of get some more information. And it's really a finale that's not a finale, because I know the guys were working on something that was closer to what we normally do with our arc of the show. So it's been sort of difficult, I think, to sort of mount a finale when it wasn't really truly supposed to be that way. But I think it's successful in that we leave it in typical Blacklist fashion, where we've got something that's, we have something where you're hanging on and expecting something to begin anew next season when we start season 8.
Well said.
We're good at sort of allowing the viewers to become really involved and sort of pushing the envelope as far as, giving them just enough to hold them on, so.
Hang on the hook.
Now you just got to get it down like John does and just don't answer a question. Just find a way to dance.
Yeah.
Bit like a bass on a topwater lure. That sort of.
There you go. That links it all up.
That's well played. Yeah. Well played. I think we're about ready to start the episode, right? Like it's about ready to start?
We are, yeah. So, John, anything you want to say to the fans before we go?
No, it's crazy times. We're trying to have fun with the episode, trying to squeak one more out that has a little more resolution, and I hope everyone has fun and enjoys the finale of season 7.
Going to be good. It's going to be a good show tonight, guys. Hopefully you stick around. The way this works is that we will be here the entire hour. Watch the show, come back at the commercials. I know Chris is going to stick around. I know Elyse is going to stick around. John may pop in and out. You never know who's going to stop by. Aaron and I will be here the whole time. But yeah, we'll be back at the commercial breaks, and then we'll hang out for a little bit after the show, take some fan questions. So if you're following on YouTube or following on Facebook, go ahead and just leave the comments in the chats, and then we'll address those as we go along. But enjoy the Kazanjian Brothers, written by Sam Christopher and Kelli Johnson, and put together by a whole slew of people. You guys are in for a treat.
We got a hoo-hoo.
Yeah.
All right, we'll see you guys soon. Take care. Show's starting, and we'll be back in about 10 to 12 minutes.
Okay.
Take care. Thanks, all. Aaron's added in the hat. I love it. Let's take the Dee Dee one here. The first transition scene, pretty awesome. Why don't you guys talk a little bit about the transition scenes and how those came to be?
Well, we knew that was going to be a big deal because it was the first one of the episode. And we were also sort of dealing with a situation where we kind of took some material from previous shows, and just sort of that scene with Dom and Liz was in a previous episode before, but now we've sort of crafted it so you're hearing her words as if she's speaking to Dom, if she could. It was very sort of ingenious that they set that up. And then they added the intros from the cast, which was really fantastic to kind of get us into that whole thing. But that transition specifically, that was sort of our test. The test tube baby, that was the one that was either this is going to fly or it's not. So Fuse in New York, which is our visual effects company, had a lot to do with that, sort of crafting this. How long is it going to be? What's it going to look like? How's it all going to be sort of this transformation between live action and animation? And we were trying to use, I think John Eisendrath was the one that sort of told us to try to focus in on something so that the sizing was very similar. So what we had the animators do is give us something where it would almost overlay that live action shot of the close-up of Liz. And I think that's part of the reason it's so effective, is it feels like a transformation.
And what was it like for you, Elyse? Because you guys have been looking at the show for many, many years, to be able to go to a location like the Washington Mall, never been able to shoot there, probably would never be able to get it closed down. What was that like for you guys as an editor to see that and then be able to work those pieces together?
I'd say it was pretty cool. It was a pretty cool experience to basically to steal the words of the Johns, to have a buffet of options of shots and angles and locations to be able to cut to. We kind of, the world was our oyster, and we could really anything we could think of, the animators were able to provide, which was very, very cool to be able to work with footage like that. We weren't beholden to what was able to get shot that day, where they're working super fast and trying to get everything they can get. You know, we could craft it with whatever we could think of.
And then maybe talk a little bit about how much was the animation was sent from the animation, like when you're actually cutting shots in the animation. Was that your team that did all that work, or was that the animators that did the work as a pre-rendered piece that you had to just fit in?
The animators would send us the shots separately, and then we would edit the shots together. So we decided everything, and eventually sometimes we'd have holes, and we'd put like title cards in to just kind of hold the placeholder until we could get a shot from the animators. And, you know, eventually we were able to just craft it together and while working with the animators, getting us the shots.
No, it's great. We're back from commercials, so stay tuned. Really great scene coming up here in Act 2, so hang on tight. You guys are in for a treat. We're here with Elyse Holloway and Chris Brookshire from the editor's room on the Blacklist Exposed, so stay tuned for the watch party as we continue. Everybody loves a little ballroom blitz.
Boom, boom, boom. So I got to ask you guys, okay, so you're editing this, and you've... I do not look as good in this hat as Spader does. You guys edit this all the time. You edit 1,000 action scenes. What's different about editing an action scene normally versus trying to do it with animation?
I'm going to throw that to Elyse, since she was the one that handled that whole exciting shootout sequence.
It's a great sequence. It's my favorite scene in the episode, honestly.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it was. It's a little more challenging with the animation, because I feel like certain things that you can spot or see in the live action are a little more harder to distinguish in the animation. So we had a little difficulty sometimes trying to work out the idea to make sure it was obvious that Pasha was shooting the hostage. The first couple iterations of the scene, it wasn't super clear. So we ended up adding a couple of shots where you could see the gun like getting put into her back, and pointing that out, and like a little closer shot of when she gets shot. So certain things like that were a little more challenging than usually in live action. It's a little more obvious in live action.
Do you have more to work with too, I assume? Because I assume live action, they've done hundreds of shots, footage, and animation. I feel like they just give you what they give you and you have to make it work. Is that how that works?
Versus Well,
because they do so much coverage and they do so many alternate takes and whatnot, where animation feels like it's pretty straightforward, especially in this time frame.
Yeah, a lot of live action, like we usually get a ton of footage when it comes to the action scenes. They usually cover it really well, and you can, get any angle. We shoot with 3 cameras, but I feel like
6 cameras, we're on action scenes,
action scenes, we do many, many more cameras. So there's a ton of options. And with animation, this is the one thing where it was a little more limited as far as angles and trying to get just the right look to make sure things were readable. But it was fun.
That's cool. That's intense how that works.
Then we have one of those ADR scenes, I think, in this sequence too, where you had Merwin. He was sitting there he's on the phone after he talks to the daughter, and then he's talking to the guy in the chess store again. But it looked like that was like reused footage again. Is that what you guys had to do to put that scene together?
Yes, we stole some footage from the teaser to try and get the other side of the phone call. We were trying to make it look as not like the teaser as possible from stealing that. But yeah, it's a lot of taking shots on his back and stealing, getting him to do ADR so that we could fit it in with the footage that we had.
And it totally works. That's a testament to you guys as the people that put the show together. It was fantastic.
Yeah, it blends. It does blend.
Thank you.
All right. Well, we're back to Act 3, so stay tuned. More great Blacklist animation and conversations with Elyse and Chris coming up in just a minute. Stay tuned. Well, this is an interesting twist in the episode here. They're not facing off face-to-face, but facing off unconsciously inside of a car, speeding away. And here we have the 2 notorious criminals with Liz in the thing, and I'm just curious how this is going to pan out. But first, we got to come back to the restaurant scene, Chris, and talk a little bit about all the different cuts you guys saw of the restaurant scene as the animations were coming in.
Yeah, that was really interesting. I think that scene went through more changes than just about any other. When we initially got the animation, I know for Jon Bokenkamp and John Eisendrath, they were imagining more of what I'll call some of our Blacklist shots, more wide angles, nice overheads, closer angles on people. So I cut that scene initially and then had to sort of throw that away and start anew as the animators sort of embraced our Blacklist look. And that was interesting from the standpoint that what we received the second time really did key into what we normally get. And it felt like a whole new scene from that standpoint. And the other aside to that scene was we had Megan Boone and James Bader record the ADR. And initially the performances weren't really quite matching. So we had a situation where we had to have Megan record her dialogue again. There were some sound quality issues with all of that. But, the scene went through a lot of different changes. But I think it's really dynamic from the standpoint that they gave us so many great angles. In fact, I think they gave us more angles than they would have in live action, of course, because they're under the clock and production is sort of like trying to make their day. So in that regard, much like the Washington Mall, we could never shoot in the Washington Mall. We would never get that many angles in that sort of kitchen scene. So it was really informative to see that whole process take place. And what we ended up as an end result is just really fantastic.
And you've got these guys that are doing their audio from their homes, right? So they're sending in a ton of clips, I assume, different takes and whatnot. Is that any different than taking the live action shots? I mean, you're just having to sift through audio and try to find the best fit for each scene?
I think with the ADR, when they were submitting their ADR, we were actually trying to get them to record in a fairly controlled environment so that the audio was pretty good. Mm-hmm. But remember, on set, we're recording with professional mics and boom guys and everything like that. So the audio is just stellar from the set. So we were dealing with that as well. And I know our sound guys and our mixers, Elmo and Frenchie and Jason George, who's our supervising sound editor.
Some
We're
great
kind of
names.
talking the actors through and sort of getting them to give us something that was quality-wise close to what we would normally get on the set.
Yeah, it's definitely a difficult process because you have to figure out how do you not only match the audio from the clips that are coming in from them, but also matching it to the scenes themselves, because you have to get Spader's volume the right way and you got to get Megan's volume, and then you got to get them to match together.
Yeah.
So that's a daunting feat.
And so much of that was done in the mixing stage, and that's why I'm giving, a lot of credit to those guys. So you have that evening out of everything, and everything sounds like it's on the same level. So, yeah.
All right, we're up to Act 3 or 4 at this point. I forget where we are. It's just so exciting because it's just great to watch. So
racing against time.
There you go, racing against the clock. What's going to happen to Red? Is he going to make it? What's Katarina's involvement? We'll watch here as we go back soon here with Chris and Elyse on the Blacklist Exposed Watch Party for the Kazanjian Brothers. We'll be back in about 6 to 8. See you guys.
All right, so I'm going to ask you. Oh, dog alert! Dog alert! I'm going to ask you guys a story question, because I know we've talked a lot about editing, but I'm kind of curious, how you guys feel about the story. So Troy and I have this big debate where he's all like Team Red, and I say, Liz deserves to get some information, but not like she deserves to not be treated like this. It's kind of like an abusive relationship, in my opinion. How do you guys stand on the whole Red and Liz relationship, and without obviously giving away anything that you might know from the future, just like your personal stance?
I think Red has, as he would with many people, a really strong sort of power over Liz. The same way that he can kind of manipulate people to do what he would like to do just because he has this charisma about him. He's sort of done this with Liz as well. And as much as she sort of pulls away, there's always a way for him to pull her back. And there is, a connection between the two of them. We might not have all figured that out, and that's not completely clear cut. But Liz wants to be involved with Red. So as much as she doesn't want to sort of, be beholden to Red, there's still this pull and this idea that they are tied together. And I think that's what makes the story so successful.
Elyse?
I do think it's an abusive relationship for sure, but I think he knows I think like Chris is saying though, they have a connection, and I think Red knows it, and he can kind of manipulate Liz. But it's also Liz's fault for keeping to come back.
That's true.
She could walk away, but she's also intrigued by this character of Red, and I think she wants to know more and will always be drugged back in until she knows.
Yeah. I think searching for the truth leads you through a lot of back trails in the deep woods, and she's in it now, and she's not going to be satisfied until she finds all the real answers.
Us either.
That's true. I noticed in this sequence too, we had a lot of overhead shots from the animators that you guys chose to put in. Is that just a design choice that you guys made, or were just the overhead shots just something that you guys wanted to lean into, just to give more scope, I guess, of where the environments were?
I think it's a thing of like stuff that I think it's a good example of stuff that we wouldn't necessarily be able to do in live action. So I think there were some shots that Chris got in for some of his sequences that I saw, and I was like, oh, these are really cool. Can you please make these for me? So I think it, kind of snowballed into getting more of those overhead shots. Yeah. Bokenkamp will always ask us for some really powerful, strong transition shots of the cities and everything. So we really wanted to bring that in more than just the transitions, where that's kind of typically the only time that we can use overhead shots like that.
Well, Red is awake. He is alive again and kicking, and probably going to start doing some interrogation of some bad guys. So why don't we go ahead and get into the next act here with the Kazanjian Brothers live watch party with Chris Brookshire, Elyse Holloway. Stay tuned, guys. We'll be back in about 6 to 8 minutes.
Welcome back. By the way, if you guys want to ask Chris and Elyse any questions, please do so in the comments, and we will be talking to them when this episode ends. But that helicopter sequence was sweet. How did that come about?
Well, that was very interesting because, as you can imagine, some of the safety concerns with a real helicopter would never allow somebody with a briefcase that close to open it and the papers to fly up in the rotor blades.
Right.
So there was concern when they were going to shoot that. Our director, Michael Caracciolo, had told me that he had worked out a plan, so he was going to integrate a lot of that stuff. I think there was probably a measure of visual effects that we would have to integrate with that whole sequence. So the fact that we were able to do so much of that in animation and use all these great angles with Merwin, the character Merwin, so close to the chopper was amazing. We just couldn't do that in live action. So that was kind of, for me, as far as the animation, that was some of the first stuff that I was receiving. And we initially got it in a grayscale, almost stick figure kind of form. But once they started delivering the color shots, it was really exciting because they gave us so many angles and so many things with that helicopter sequence that it was, it was really intriguing to see where they were approaching all this, and the fact that in live action we could do much of that, but I'm certain that we could not have gotten the amount of shots and the amount of angles that we got in the animation. So from that standpoint, it was really, for me, it was one of the most thrilling sequences that I had the pleasure of working on.
Is there a particular scene that you guys cut where it really started to come together that this is going to work? Because I assume, everybody was a little trepidatious, like, I hope this thing's going to pan out. But is there a particular scene where you were cutting it? Elyse, you're smiling way too much. So is there a scene where you were putting it all together and you're like, this is going to be good?
I think it was that helicopter sequence.
Really?
Because Chris, a lot of his stuff was coming in before I was getting anything. So he was kind of one step before me. And so I would get the media prep for him, and I would see these shots that were more finalized. And I'm like, wow, these are really cool. And we would call each other, and I'd be like, Chris, this is awesome. And he's like, yeah, this is great, as he's cutting it in and working with it. So I think that was probably the sequence that really clicked because it was one of the first ones, like Chris said. I
actually think it was the end sequence for me that Elyse cut, which was really exciting because they really, I think very early on, they really put a lot of color and vibrancy in that. And it was tremendous to see that for me and how that really just took on a whole life of its own. So that was very cool.
We're coming up on the top of the hour and the end of season 7. Everybody hold on your horses because there's a lot that's going to happen in the next 8 minutes. So stay tuned. We'll be back to talk about it. Get your questions in the comments. We'll take them at the end. You're listening to the Blacklist Exposed watch party for the Kazanjian Brothers. Hang on. Finale is up next.
Go. Here we go. We're back.
Wow.
What did you guys think? You two, Elyse and Chris, what did you think of the finale when you read it or when you watched it for the first time, whatever? What did you think of that turn of Liz and her Batman moment, taking over the city, etc.?
It's a great moment, and I'm not sure we would have been able to really achieve that without the animation. And that was it's sort of a great way to go out, I think, and certainly crafting a finale that wasn't meant to be a finale, but giving us a cliffhanger that I think we're all excited to find out what's going to happen in season 8.
Oh yeah, I think it was very cool. I think the final shot, we had a couple options, and I think what we ended on was great. It just kind of iconic and, like you said, Batman-like, and I think it'll propel us into season 8.
Were you guys surprised by that turn? Or you kind of saw it coming? Well, obviously you did. You saw the scripts before you met him. But in terms of like earlier this season or early, I mean, did you see this turn coming, or were you pleasantly surprised? I know it's probably hard when you work on the show, so I don't know how that works for you guys.
The writers, John Eisendrath, Jon Bokenkamp, and their writing team always surprise me. When I think I've got something figured out, there's a left turn often, and that's kind of what I think is so great about the show is even somebody like myself or Elyse that works on the show, we're constantly thrown for a loop and a left turn. And, you just can't anticipate what the next corner is going to bring, which is great,
Yeah, we have, we're not privy to know everything that's going to happen in the series and upcoming. And there are lots of theories around the office that get tossed around. So we're just as much as the fans out there trying to guess what's going to happen next.
So let me clarify. So you guys don't actually know. You don't know the secret or whatever the secrets are. You don't know them ahead of time? Chris knows something, but
I think I know, and I've tried to test that theory with people that I think are in the know, and they slyly either nod their head yes or slyly nod their head no. So I honestly, my answer is I think I know, but I'm not sure.
That feels right.
Yeah, it does feel right, and so I'm a person just like the general audience that is sort of like wondering how this is all going to be tied up and what we're going to learn from all of this. And that's kind of what is so exciting about it. It's a never ending puzzle, and I haven't figured it out yet.
Well, we got a question from Emily Scott over on YouTube. Hey, Chris and Elyse, which animated scene is your favorite that you would not be able to do live action? So if you can pick anything you wanted to animate, what would you pick? We'll go with Elyse first. What would you want to do?
That's not the question.
As far as like what we cut in the show, the episode?
Yeah, what animated scene is your favorite that you would not be able to do live action? Like which one that we wouldn't be able to do?
I think it was the shootout. I think the shootout in the motel was super fun to cut. It was kind of fun and different because the challenges that it presented, not being live action. And it was, it was just kind of fun. It was fun to do.
Mine would be the helicopter because I just could never imagine that being shot in live action and allowing actors to get so close to whirling helicopter blades. But I think that's kind of the beauty of the animation is we were able to do so much in the animated world that we can't do in the live action. So it's exciting from that standpoint. And the other one would be the Washington Mall for me, where we just couldn't shoot something like that and lock that location down. So that was really cool for me as well.
Can you explain that? I mean, because a lot of people don't know the ins and outs of filmmaking. Why is it so hard to lock down something like the Washington Mall?
Well, first of all, you would have to get a massive amounts of permits, and you'd have to go through our location services department on the Blacklist. And basically, it's about security. It's about the amount of area that you can sort of say, this is for filming. We don't want the general public coming into this area. And you have to take into consideration a place like the Washington Mall. It would be something like Disneyland, where they say, hey, from, the opening entrance back to the castle, we're going to shut this down for an hour and a half to shoot, a feature, a television show. Disneyland wouldn't allow that, and neither would the Washington Mall, because it takes up too much of the public's sort of time that they would be spending there. So it's that way in just about everything. Even locking down a street in Washington D.C. or New York is the same way. You just have to get a lot of permits, and it's a lengthy process. And I think it changed a lot to after 9/11, to be honest with you, where security really became a bigger issue with a lot of this stuff. So.
And it's probably time too, because you only have 9 days to shoot the episode. So to have to travel from New York to DC,
that's absolutely correct as well. So it's great when we go on location, and you've seen some of those great scenes in parks where they're sitting on benches and all that kind of. It gives a cinematic scope to the show, which you really, really need. But at times, just because we're not able to do it, we have to be creative and come up with an inventive way to shoot a scene in a really kind of cool manner, but not maybe use a location that's as big and unwieldy as that. So,
well, it seems like from Twitter, very positive comments about the episode thus far. So Luke, of course, is going to ask the question I think many people are going to ask, which is, we did one, why not finish the other three?
No pressure.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, we would be finishing sometime in September. Is the honest answer, because this episode was a lot of work by a lot of people with a lot of invaluable contributions to it all, and it just took a long time trying to mix the animation and the live action. We're ending up essentially at the same place we would, as far as post-production goes, if we had shot 22 episodes. So if we were to elongate it and give everyone 22 episodes as far as animation goes, with these last 3 episodes that were owed, we would really be, the time window would really be stretched as far as that goes. And there is, to be honest with you, there's a cost issue, and with so many things getting shut down because of the pandemic, people had to be creative and say, we're going to create a finale out of something that wasn't truly meant to be a finale, and sort of call it a day. And hopefully when everything comes back to the normal, we'll resume. And honestly, this is a big variable for all of us, because we just don't know what the answer to that is.
So who put in the longest day to try to get this done?
That was that woman right there. She had a 22 and something hour day. So,
why don't you walk through that day? Just tell us.
Did you have coffee and then oatmeal? I mean, how did it work?
People wait on you hand and foot?
It was a fever dream, I think. I woke up, I think, around 6 a.m. to get started at 6:30, and I basically broke for 15 minutes, sat on my couch to eat some lunch, went back to work, broke for another 15 for dinner, and next thing I know, it's 4:30 in the morning, and I'm still finishing up. So it was a big day. We got hit with a lot of animation, and we had to send out a lot of cuts and stuff for approval and to get eyes on it. As
the process began to sort of get into a locked area, what was happening was that London, Proof in the UK, and Proof in Atlanta, who did exclusively all of Act 2, which included the shootout, they were delivering shots. And so as they delivered shots, we would continue to have to work and cut those new shots in, send those sequences to the Johns to get their eyes on it and to approve it, because if we did have to make any changes, we had to turn that around very quickly and get that back out to the people in London and Atlanta to say, this is almost there, but we need to change this, or someone head turn needs to happen a little sooner, or the gun needs to go off, those kind of things. And we were up against a really big deadline, so as the window narrowed, we just had to put in some really difficult hours.
Yeah, people don't realize how long it actually takes for animation, and then you're editing on top of that. So this is a time crunch beyond time crunches.
And I do have to say, Proof in London and Atlanta were amazing from the standpoint that they really did turn things around in an astounding fashion as far as the time frame goes. I never imagined that we would get complete scenes like the kitchen in a matter of a couple of days. They scrapped what they had initially, gave us all new shots. It was a lot of hard work on their part. And I think they unwittingly might not have known how much hard work it was going to be initially, because if they'd known, they might have said, no, thank you. But to their credit, they worked just as hard as us getting all this stuff done. And the final product shows because of their just forcefulness and their creativity in getting all this done.
Yeah, the fans are definitely saying it, right? PK, well done. Phenomenal episode. Good job, everybody.
Wow.
The animation made the final scene so cool from Linda, which was, of course, the cool Batman moment.
There you go.
So, fans are loving it. It's one of those that I think people are going to talk about for a long time, and it's just the amount of effort. Talk a little bit about like the choice to actually add in all of the people that were at the end of the episode, all the people behind the scenes. What was it like editing that together, seeing those as they came in? Because these are your coworkers that you never get to see on a regular basis.
Did you find coworkers you're not really that fond of? And you're like, I guess Sally's not going to make it.
We love everyone we work with, but everyone who sent in, we made sure to get them in and make sure their face was shown, because everyone works very hard on our show. Yeah. So we didn't want to not include anyone. But it was Chris took the intro stuff and then I took the outro videos, and it was I think both were challenging because it was different. And with the outros, everyone they had just a simple prompt of just shout out to the fans, shout out to your family, so it was really a lot of fishing around to try and kind of create a story from what everyone had said in their videos. So it was a little challenging at first, but once I got going, it was fun. It was exciting to kind of piece it all together and kind of see it develop into its own little bit.
Now we know what the 22-hour day was spent doing.
Yeah.
Hey, Troy, I want to ask you a question.
Sure.
Yeah, Sue Johnson. Actually, this is not my question, but it's something that I would ask you. Troy, are you now convinced she is the real Katarina? And if not, how do you support your doubts? They work on the show, so I think they would just love to see you dance around this answer.
On the spot. Oh, my gosh. No, I'm still in the camp of that, especially with this episode. I think that she is not the real Katarina Rostova. There's just things in this episode that make my radar go a little bit weird. The Cooper conversation with Red.
Your radar's always weird, but whatever.
But the don't lay a hand on her, I won't. I guarantee that. This is someone that he's at odds with, at battle with, that he would probably end up doing something to her and was trying to do something to her through Ott. So the fact that he would say that, but yet still consider her an enemy, gives me a little bit of pause. So yeah, I think at this point I'm still on the fence that this is not the real Katarina. Now, does that actually make my other point of the theory true? That's still up for debate, right? But I think for sure there's enough in season 7 that this Katarina Rostova is not the Katarina Rostova we've come to know throughout the course of the series.
They're all smiling. They're like, oh, you can't say nothing.
It's. I think everyone has a theory, and that's the beauty of it all.
Yes, they do.
Yeah. And so I'll be honest with you. That is a great theory, and whether or not it's going to turn out to be true is going to be revealed in season 8.
You think?
I don't know.
That was convincing, though. That was very convincing.
Yeah, that was convincing.
We always talk about the writers like to play with people ever since Lost came out. Yes, everybody take a shot. I said Lost for the longtime podcast fans. But the opening sequence of I don't care who Red is. When Liz says that, it makes me go, are we ever going to know the answer?
Yeah. Last episode. That's when we're going to know.
I personally think, as a person who loves to work on the show and loves the show itself, I think, I'll be brutally honest here, that I think the viewers are owed that when we all wrap this up. I think there's got to be a concise finalized moment where everything is sort of explained. And maybe John Eisendrath and Bokenkamp wouldn't agree with that, but that's just my honest opinion. I would like, as someone who watches the show and enjoys the show, to have that kind of, I want to know exactly what's going on.
What about you, Elyse?
Yeah, I think I'd like to know what's going on. What's the mystery behind Red? I think it would be nice. Yeah, I mean, his mystery definitely draws us in for every episode. So I think it would have to be a series finale reveal, because I think once you know, I mean, I think it's kind of like the mystery time.
Yeah, once you know, you do know.
But we've always said that answer could lead to more questions. There's 30 years of history that we don't know about, right? Yeah,
that's how real life works, right? You often don't get the final answer. It just leads to more questions. So, there's some truth in that for sure. Yeah, and I wish that I truly knew. And like I said, there are times when I think I do, and there are times when I don't think I know it all.
I mostly just think I don't know it all, and I just throw darts. That's really all it is.
Yeah,
darts.
Yeah. So some people have very strong opinions about what they've sort of crafted as a narrative through the entire, show. And I feel like a lot of that is based on things that they might be weighing more than they really should. There's a lot of sort of things that are thrown in there that make you think that they should be important, but and yet they're not really intrinsically as important as the things around it. Again, that's just very subtle craziness going on with all of that. So,
it's true. I have had people throw out one line at me that came in season whatever, episode whatever, and they're like, well, this is very important. I'm like, he's basically asking for coffee. I don't know why. How do you weigh that? How do you put that much weight into that?
Yeah. He's playing chess and he picked up the rook. That means something. It's that kind of thing,
That's what makes shows like this fun, though.
Yeah.
In terms of editing and what you guys do every day, what's the most difficult part for you, and the most rewarding part? So it's like a two-part question, I guess, for each of you.
Go ahead, Elyse.
That's a tough question. I think the most difficult part. I'm going to start with the second part. I think the most rewarding part is when you have a really tough scene and you don't know how you're going to start it, and you just get working on it and you just start throwing things down and you just see it start to come together. And it's just kind of like how all the pieces, even like with the animation, was just kind of like this tenfold, where it's like you see these beginning pieces laying down, and then you add the sound effects, and then you add the music, and just everything clicks into place. And that is just so exciting and so rewarding to see that come together. The most difficult, I guess, is probably when you have a tough scene and you don't know. You're looking at all the footage, and either all the shots look amazing and you don't know where to start. It just kind of, you sit there for what it feels like a half a day and you get 2 cuts down. and that's probably really the most difficult part, when you get kind of writer's block, so to say, and you just need to try and get that engine rolling so that you can finish and get to that part where everything clicks together.
That's a good answer.
Yeah, I think for me, it's just a matter of all those elements that she was talking about coming together. I think as an editor, oftentimes you have to strive to not make cuts. If you have an actor that is just totally great in a scene like Spader or Harry Lennox, you just let them do their performance. You don't really have to work too hard to make that all come together. They're doing all the legwork for you. I think sometimes the challenge lies in the stuff that doesn't feel organically right, or you're trying to, what I'll call, manufacture a moment that's not truly there in the footage. And then I think the sort of layer to all of that is editors on television, much like in features, get a lot of footage. If we were to spend basically all day long watching footage and then sort of coming up with a game plan, we would be there for 17 or 18 hours a day, because we are typically getting 6 or 7 hours worth of dailies because they're shooting 3 cameras. So I think as you get more versed in what people want to see, and by that I mean the executive producers, they have a very sort of clear-cut aesthetic. And if you as an editor can sort of buy into that aesthetic and you realize what they're after very early on, it's a lot easier. If you're constantly swimming against the tide as far as that goes, it's going to be a very difficult process. But I know for Elyse and myself, we'll often get a scene and we'll cut it and we'll go, I know this moment means a lot to the Johns. It's even crafted in a way in the script that we're supposed to stop down and have a moment here. So you take sort of touchstones like that and sort of use that as you're editing something together. But it's incredibly frustrating at times, but inevitably it's incredibly rewarding when you sort of unlock this puzzle and it really just sort of, with the music and the sound effects and everything comes together. It really makes you feel great.
We're coming up on time. I think, what would you guys like to see in season 8 as we're coming off of this transformation? Like you're getting your first set of dailies from the first episode. What are you hoping to see?
What do you hope to see? Don't spoil anything if you know anything. Just what you want to see as fans.
I love the myriad of characters. I love these crazy characters, and I think Bokenkamp has often described it as a rogues gallery of villains. And I really love that. And we've lost some great characters through the years. And I'm always hoping for the start of, we've lost Mr. Kaplan. We've lost Smokey Putnam. And I'm always hoping when we're introduced into the new season that we're going to get something where we're seeing some great new characters. That's what I always hope for. And I always hope for sort of great arcs. We do some incredible arcs, over the course of 3 or 4 episodes. And I'm always happy to see that because it just really sort of propels us in a different area and makes the story move forward. So that's always my thing. And I'm a big Spader fan. So I love when he's on screen and I love his performances and I love the entire cast. But Spader sort of makes the show. So I'm always on board with all of that.
Yeah, Harry too. Harry, I love.
Harry Lennox is fantastic. Yes.
A good. When we're up in his office, those are fun scenes to cut. But yeah, Harry's great. So it'd be nice to see some. I'd love to see some good Harry scenes.
Well, when the cup moves on his desk in mid shot, that was Aaron's fault because he put his feet up on Harry's desk.
He did. Yeah, I was a little too relaxed. I do. What I would love to say, you're talking about what a Spader fan you are. I keep telling Troy, like, my dream for whenever the final, if this is the final season or whenever the final season is, for Spader to finally call in that favor to get Robert Downey Jr. to be a blacklister and have Andrew McCarthy direct it.
Yeah,
that's my dream. That's my dream.
That's so crazy that Andrew McCarthy is directing.
Yeah.
We've got Spader starring in it. I often feel like we should have some of this 80s, characters within the whole thing. We had in Brothers, was it Anthony Michael Hall?
Anthony Michael Hall.
Who was a big 80s star. So
Judd Nelson to show up.
And Judd Nelson, yeah. We get Ali Sheedy and Judd Nelson, Molly Ringwald. Yeah, we can get them all. That would be fantastic. But I'll give you a little perspective from my point, which is I've seen James Spader in feature films, going back to Sex, Lies, and Videotapes, and you watch him today, and his sort of delivery of his lines is eerily similar to when it was there. And I think that's why people have such a connection to him, is because when you hear him talk and you see him speak and he's on camera, you're like, there's nobody like James Spader. That's James Spader, and I think that's kind of why the series has been so successful, just because he's sort of leading the charge, and we have this great cast of characters behind him. But that's always so interesting to me that I could hear if he's in a movie in the other room, I can say that's James Spader. I don't even need to see the picture. I just know it's him.
Yeah, you watch Age of Ultron. I didn't even think of that. That's a
exactly.
Robot. I'm just like, that's James Spader. Is James Spader in that thing? I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah.
Last question as we get out of here, as we looked forward, let's look back real quick and reflect on season 7. What's your greatest, awesome moment of season 7 for you? And what was the, oh my gosh, I can't believe we're doing this for 7 years? With Elyse first.
Well, Chris definitely has the, oh my gosh, we can't do for 7. How have we been doing it for 7 years? Because I've not been on the show for the start.
Don't take a cop out. 5 years then. 5 for you.
Let's see here. Best part for season 7, I think. Oh man, it's all a blur. Honestly, was Ratsvet this season or was that last season?
No, that was in 6/19.
Okay.
Yeah. Wow, he's dropping the number. Jeez.
So this season, what happened this season? Actually, I really enjoyed it. It was the first time that we got to work on the mid-season finale, and that was really cool to work on that. And there was that cool kind of capery scene where Red has discovered where Katarina is and holding Liz captive, and he's trying to get to her while Katarina's trying to get out and get Illy out. I think that was all very fun and very cool, and very, very Blacklisty. Just kind of that fun, but exciting. Who's going to win out sort of scene. I think that was really fun.
Yeah.
And I think to answer your question of how long we've been doing it, I think just the mere fact of how everything's kind of blurring together, and I have a hard time remembering what scene is what or what season is what, and we always joke in the office, we kind of all have forgotten season 5, is it?
No, season 6, really.
Yeah, we'll be talking about some story point, and we're like, oh yeah, that happened in season 5, and people are like, no, I think that was season 6. And it's just, for some reason, season 6 has gone into this void of everyone's mind, and it's just gotten into that. I think we've all gotten into that point of where are we? When are we?
Yeah. I think for me, it was, I think one of the high points this season was 704, which was the Kuwait episode. And I really like these origin stories where you kind of go back and you explore some of the characters. And it was really essentially about Cooper's character, Harry Lennox. And I really enjoyed that because we were sort of out of our element, so to speak, in a different time and place. I just enjoyed, I'll be honest, I loved all the sort of the action stuff that was going on in there. And they shot a cruise missile into the place where Cooper was. And I dig all that. But I like when we go back and we explore our characters. And I think Bokenkamp had brought it up earlier where you guys and maybe he had liked Brothers because we're learning something about Wrestler and his connection to his past. And I always think those episodes are a lot of fun.
Oh, great. And it's been an exciting season 7. I know we got cut short a couple episodes, but I think the story is where it is, and I think it worked out great. And just big thanks to all of you in the editing department. I know we had Z on the watch party a few weeks ago. and just all the stuff that you guys do behind the scenes to make the show happen for the fans, I think is just amazing. And just thanks so much for being here for the Kazanjian Brothers live watch party season finale.
Thanks
labor
for
of
coming by.
love. Labor of love.
And we have a more in-depth interview with these lovely people in our, I think it's live now, right?
It is live now. So head on over to theblacklisexposed.com and you'll be able to get the our full thoughts on the finale, Aaron and I, as well as more in-depth stuff.
We love it.
Troy. Thanks, Aaron.
Yeah, thank you.
You guys have been great. Thanks so much for being here.
All right.
And say, Blacklist fans, we'll see you when we see you. Don't forget, special podcast next week with Jon Bokenkamp to wrap up the season. So
nice.
Make sure you subscribe and stay tuned. Next time here on the Blacklist Exposed. Ciao, everybody. It never ceases to amaze me. I've seen this episode like 6 times now because it's just so creative in the way it was done. And yes, I know people are all, but I want to see my actors. I want to see their facial expressions and what they bring to the role. And I'm not a big fan of the animation. It was all choppy and weird. And guys, this was put together in 5 weeks. 5 weeks to be able to do something so cool and to be able to get those shots like the Washington Mall by the Capitol building or the helicopter sequence with the papers flying everywhere. I mean, those things just wouldn't have happened if you had a normal episode of The Blacklist. So it really just gave another level of oomph to the show, I think, especially because we did get season 7 cut off at the knees because of the pandemic, a little bit short here. But I think it ended in a really cool place. And I think that's where we get excited as we move into next week and the return of The Blacklist Season 8, November 13th, 8 Eastern, 7 Central, NBC, here in the States. Liz has now sided with her mother, or so we think her mother. Some jury's still out on that, whether we think it's the real Katerina or a fake Katerina. You guys can be the judge as we go through the motions here. Once again, with Aaron on these podcasts, we'll be releasing them, of course, either right after the show or very close to right after the show over the weekend, depending on time and COVID and all that other fun stuff. But yeah, just super going to be excited because we are hitting the ground running. We got story from last season that we can bring forward. It's not going to be any chance to catch a breath. No more secrets, no more lies. We are full on season 8 of The Blacklist starting next week. We're going to be here talking with all of you. So if you haven't gotten ready yet, if you have not yet subscribed to this podcast, you actually want to subscribe in your podcast player. That means you get the next episode of the podcast immediately and automatically in your podcast player. So please, if you haven't done that, subscribe to the podcast. Also check out the YouTube channel and subscribe to the YouTube channel as well. All the links, everything, including the playlists for the music, Spotify and Apple Music both, they are out there on the website, theblacklisexposed.com. theblacklisexposed.com. That's where you can get all the information, all the episodes, embedded videos from YouTube on the watch parties. Everything you need is there. Make sure you check it out. Make sure you join the Facebook group also, facebook.com/groups/The Blacklist GSM. That's Golden Spiral Media, GSM. And you can join in the Facebook conversations. You can hit us up on Twitter at The Blacklist GSM, or we have a Tumblr page. I mean, we're just everywhere. Instagram, you name it. But if you forget all of that stuff, if you forget it all, just go to theblacklisexposed.com and you'll find all the information you need about the show, about what we're doing next and where we're going, and it's going to be amazing. So sit back, enjoy season 8. We're going to see you next week. We're super excited. Say hi to us if you see us out there in the interwebs, and we'll just be back with you for some exciting, explosive action as we kick off season 8 next week, 8 Eastern, 7 Central on NBC. Until then, for Aaron Peterson, I am Troy Heinritz. Make sure you stay safe, stay healthy, wear a mask, and we'll see you next week when season 8 kicks off right here on The Blacklist Exposed. Take care. Until next time, I'm Agent Troy Heinritz. That's at Troy Heinritz on Twitter. And if you want to learn more about me, just visit, about.me/Troy Heinritz.
And I'm Agent Aaron Peterson. You can hear me talking about movies and TV on the Hollywood Outsider podcast, as well as Remake This Movie Right. We are available at thehollywoodoutsiders.com or on Twitter at 5popcorn. Be sure to subscribe, download the app, submit your feedback. But most importantly, keep yourself off of
The Blacklist.
The Blacklist Exposed is a Golden Spiral Media production. Find more of our great podcasts at goldenspiralmedia.com/podcasts.